Our big challenge after doing something that had been so fulfilling for all of us was how to follow Race to be Seen, the story of Graham Salmon. So I'm at Epping. I'm in my 3rd year of teaching there now, or maybe even my 4th year, I'm not sure. How do we follow it? One thing I was certain of was I wanted to do something that involved a big cast. So I wanted to have, I don't know, 100 people involved, much in the way that I remember Tony doing. And also I then thought maybe the year after, from that group of 100, I can have a big audition process through doing the production and select some people to do another verbatim type documentary play. And whilst we were in Edinburgh with Race to be Seen, we saw all sorts of things, amongst which was John Godber's Up and Under. So that was a huge inspiration that year. But the other inspiration was a little university production called Odyssey. I have no idea who did it, other than I think it was a university group. And they did this production as a promenade. We had to walk for miles to go and see it in a little school. And they used the whole school. And I said, this is something we must do. But what could we use as our stimulus for a big promenade production? Promenade is where the audience are moving around and one scene happens over here, then the audience move and the people who are in the back row ended up in the front row whilst the next scene is over there. And I had always loved a record called The King of Elfland's Daughter. Sorry, it's really sunny, so the blinds are showing. The King of Elfland's Daughter by Steeleye Span. 2 guys from Steeleye Span, Robert Knight, I think he is, Bob Johnson and Pete Knight. And they produced this album called The King of Elfland's Daughter, which I loved, absolutely adored it, and it never seemed to do very much. And I discovered it was based on a book by Lord Dunsany called The King of Elfland's Daughter. What would we do? I would adapt it using their music, maybe write a couple of my songs to put in and use a couple of Steeleye Span's lesser known songs. And then here we are. Barry did the most amazing poster, Barry Sapsford, for King of Elfland's Daughter. And we staged it in the hall. What a glorious thing it is, staging a promenade production. You have the whole, we had a big school hall, and on the stage we put the band, featuring Graham Salmon on guitar. And Paul Service again did the stalwart job of arranging all the songs for the little orchestra that we had. The school had a music school as well. And we produced what I think is one of our most staggering productions. And it's a real shame. I always wanted to do it in Epping Forest. And then when I moved down to Hampshire in the New Forest, it's never happened. But it's something that probably should. That was the cast in full costume. Sadly, I have no pictures of it in its kind of promenade glory, but we used an idea during the time we were doing this. The National Theatre did the Mysteries, and we had the idea of a forklift truck. So we had Kim, the Queen, that's her, Queen Zurundarel. She went up on a forklift truck to proclaim her song, the Witch Song. It's an album well worth checking out. Loads and loads of Will-o'-the-Wisps and so on. And it was reviewed, and it divided the audience. We had one guy who really complained about having to stand and how awful it was. But there were others who absolutely loved it. And the little C5, that was for the journey for Princess Lirazel across to Elfland. To Earl, rather, the main town. And it was my first encounter, this is 1985, with breakdancing. We had Lee Stokes, who was a breakdancing troll. But what a superstar he was. 13-year-old Lee Stokes doing breakdancing. I'd never seen it before. And we had it in our production. That is, if not the whole cast, that's a lot of them. I mean, it really was quite a jamboree production. We had a big hall, so we could afford the space to use lots of them. We got national reviews following Race to be Seen, so the Amateur Stage covered it. Really loved it. We had the Stage and Television Today. I mean, this is real big national artistic press. And then the Times Educational Supplement. Good old Hugh David came and reviewed it for the Times Educational Supplement. And he said The show itself was a first-rate effort, cut and sharpened as apparently it's going to be, with rather fewer elves and will-o'-the-wisps, but with every last note of the marvellous score preserved. It could run and run. What a shame that I never did anything more with it. I did more with Promenade, but I left it alone, and it was partly because the rights for the book were a bit of an issue. I think the rights are now out of date, so it's free to do. If anybody's interested in reviving this, it would be a lovely thing. The legacy for me was I developed a scheme of work which many of the students who I taught over the years will remember as their opening to Year 7 work at Oaklands, The King of Elfland's Daughter, and it ran for a full half term. We did the whole story as a Dorothy Heathcote style drama lesson sequence. It remains one of the most wonderful things I was ever involved in, but sadly it's something that has just disappeared. If you get a chance to go on Spotify or iTunes and find the album, it's a great, great album. It's called The King of Elfland's Daughter by Bob Johnson and Pete Knight of Steeleye Span. Once we'd finished that, we needed now to look at our next production that I was really determined was going to be a collaborative effort, verbatim, using modern stories. And the idea came quite by chance during a drama lesson, and something that happened, and you'll see that in the next episode. Thanks very much.